Hey everyone, welcome back to Rate Take Stacking. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about how the mainstream media has been downplaying the effects of the inflation that we've been seeing. Now we all know that the media has its own spin and its own agenda on how they want to cover certain news topics, and it's no different here. As I said, I will show you this article in a second, but they've definitely spun some very small sample size statistics into a narrative that that inflation is nothing to worry about. And we've been hearing that a while from people saying, it's purely transitory. This is nothing to worry about. Obviously, with what we've been seeing, there's no reason to think that's true. We can just see with our eyes the way that inflation's been going. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you this article here because it goes more in depth about the report that they're reporting on and how they use the numbers to spin it the way that they'd like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump onto the computer and just show you this article here quickly. Okay, so this is the article here. It's on fee.org, and it says, media attempt to downplay alarming new inflation report. Despite media spin, price inflation is still very much a problem. So continuing down here, it says it's no secret that the mainstream media has a left-leaning bias. So it's not exactly surprising that when alarming new inflation data were released on Tuesday, many journalists and media outlets attempted to downplay the story. After all, raising concerns about inflation could hamper the federal government's ongoing efforts to massively increase government spending and extend the welfare state. Goes on here. For one, it says the Washington Post dubbed the new numbers an early sign that inflation could be easing, and then CNBC went off with a different spin in its headline saying consumer prices post smaller than expected increase in August. And it says, meanwhile, many left-leaning commentators and analysts argued that the data vindicated the claims that recent price inflation is just transitory. So then going down here to some of these tweets here that are favoring the idea that this is just transitory and things like that. So I'm just going to just quickly scroll through it. Don't really need to give them much more attention that they already have. And then again here it says, yet when one looks at actual report released by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, this lousy spin seems utterly unwarranted. It shows that the Consumer Price Index, an average sample of typical consumer prices, rose 0.3% in August. This is less than the 0.4% increase that had been predicted, prompting the media spin to suggest that August saw less inflation than expected. While perhaps true, this is misleading because the new figures still show prices seriously on the rise. And it says from August 2020 to August 2022, prices rose 5.3%. That's nearly a 13-year high. So yeah, it's pretty easy to look at a 1 month sample size and say, see, inflation's doing better because it's 0.1% better than we had predicted through that 1 month period, while they're completely overlooking the fact that it's been up 5.3% over the year. In particular, energy costs rose 25% year over year, while food prices rose 3.7%. Used vehicle prices was a whopping 31.9% over the last year as well. That's huge. These are just a few examples of the many ways Americans' purchasing power, their real standard of living, eroded over the last year due to price inflation. And then here's Heather Long. She tweeted basically going over what this paragraph was just talking about there. I'm going to continue on down here. So it might be true that inflation is easing or slowing down, but that's not the main takeaway here. Prices have still risen significantly as shown in the graph below comparing August 2021 to August in years past. Show the price inflation is still very much a problem. So I find it funny by looking at this chart, you see this massive spike here that nobody is talking about, but then you can see this little itty bitty dip here, this little dip or this little kind of plateau where it's not spiking up, but it's gone, like it said, just down that 0.1%. This is where everyone's celebrating. So, since it's not absolutely going at a vertical pace upwards, everything's fine. It's stopped. It's transitory. There's going to be no problems with inflation anymore. We don't have to worry about this that preceded it just because now it is going to be going here. So when it goes way up like this again, they're not going to be talking about it until the next time there's that little bit of a dip in 1 month, and then they can, go ahead and start writing these stories that you don't have to worry about inflation anymore. Inflation's over. All the transitory people were right. Look at the numbers. So they're clearly just spinning it the way they want it to be perceived. Ultimately, prices are still rising in an alarming way. That can be traced back to government policies like the Federal Reserve's printing of trillions of new dollars to fund stimulus efforts. Those who want the Fed to spend more and grow the welfare state have every incentive to downplay the consequences of fiscal and monetary recklessness. So yeah, it's not really in anybody's best interest to raise the alarms and call attention when the things aren't going the way they want to, but once there's that little bit of, they can technically say it's gone down even though it's skyrocketed up the last year. If it goes down 0.1%, then everything is sunshine and roses and, there's nothing to worry about. But don't fall for the media spin. Everyday Americans suffer the consequences of price inflation when their paychecks don't stretch as far as they used to. It's important to look beyond political narratives to understand just how much stealth taxation via inflation is really going on. So yes, it's not just down in the States where people are feeling the effect of the inflation. I live up in Canada. I live in Toronto, and it is a nightmare, especially going grocery shopping, just dreading to see what the new cost and the new bill is going to be for that weekly grocery stop, because it is not getting better. You know what I mean? It just seems to be getting worse and worse every time we need to top off our grocery list there. We're just spending more and more money. So there you go. That is the article that I wanted to show you there. So it's no big surprise that major media outlets are twisting stories to meet their narratives, using this very, very, very small sample size of a 0.1% lower than their projections. They are they're running a ticker tape parade. It looks like the end of World War II. Celebrating down the streets that inflation's over. Obviously we're not there yet, and if the next thing comes out in September that skyrockets back up 3% or something like that, you won't be hearing any stories about the huge increase. You'll just be hearing about how it's transitory. Look at how August was. This is just a blip in September. They'll spin it however they want to then. But let me know what you guys think. As I said, it's no real big surprise that you see this stuff all the time on the news, whether watching news or reading in the paper. It's they do have their biases, and you just have to take that into account whenever you're watching news or reading stuff. You just have to consider the source, and I realize that they have the people above them that are paying their checks. So whenever you hear somebody on like a Fox or CNN, it's not organically their opinion. They could fall onto that side. It might make it a lot easier to work at some of those places if you are politically aligned with what they're saying. But believe me, their scripts and what they're saying on live TV is definitely monitored and scripted, and there's not one word that they're saying that wasn't already approved by higher ups. But anyways, that's the article that I wanted to show you there. I thought it was pretty interesting the way they tried to spin inflation. But yeah, like I said, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come back for the next one. Thank you.